I saved money with my wife and she used it to buy a house with her brother. For 6 years, my wife and I saved every spare penny. We skipped holidays, worked overtime, delayed our dreams. Then one afternoon, I discovered she'd already spent our savings. Not on us, on a house I'd never even seen. Good evening, anonymous please. I'm 40 years old. My wife is 38. We have been married for 7 years. When my wife and I got married, we promised each other one thing. No matter how difficult life became, every major decision would be made together. We weren't wealthy, we built our lives slowly, one paycheck at a time, one sacrifice after another. There were years we couldn't afford holidays. Years we drove the same aging car because the mortgage came first. Every month we transferred money into a separate savings account. We called it the Dream Fund. It wasn't for anything specific, just something we'd decide on together when the time felt right. Maybe a larger home, maybe early retirement, maybe helping our boys through university without debt. Whatever it became, it would belong to both of us. My wife's younger brother has always struggled financially. He starts businesses, gets excited, things fall apart, then someone in the family helps him start again. I've lent him money before, sometimes he paid me back, sometimes he didn't. Eventually I stopped offering loans, not because I disliked him, because I couldn't keep rescuing someone who never seemed to learn. My wife hated that decision. She always believed family deserved endless chances. I believed family also needed accountability. We agreed to disagree. About 3 months ago, I noticed my wife was constantly taking phone calls outside. Whenever I asked who it was, she'd simply say, "My brother." I didn't think much of it. Then I started noticing paperwork arriving in the post. Estate agents, solicitors, mortgage companies. Whenever I picked up the letters, she'd casually say, "Oh, they're not important." Again, I believed her. Marriage is built on trust, or at least I thought it was. Last Thursday, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. Our eldest son wanted to visit a few universities, so I decided to check how much was in our Dream Fund. I typed in my password. The balance appeared, £4,183. I actually smiled. For a second, I thought I'd logged into the wrong account. So I refreshed the page. Same number. Then I clicked Transaction History. One transfer, £58,000, made 2 weeks earlier. I stared at the screen for nearly a minute, waiting for it to make sense. It never did. I called my wife immediately. She didn't answer. When she came home that evening, I turned the laptop towards her. She looked at the screen, then looked down. Finally, she whispered, "I was going to tell you." I asked the only question I could think of. "Where is our money?" She took a deep breath. Then she told me. Her brother had found an investment property. He couldn't qualify for the mortgage alone, so she'd used our savings as the deposit. The house was now in both of their names. I honestly couldn't process what I was hearing. I asked, "You bought a house with another man using our savings?" She immediately replied, "He's my brother," as though that somehow explained everything. I asked why she hadn't spoken to me first. She admitted she'd known I'd say no. She said her brother would have missed the opportunity. She insisted it wasn't spending our money, it was investing for the family's future. I asked which family. She started crying. She said all she'd wanted was to help her brother become financially secure. I reminded her we'd spent 6 years becoming financially secure ourselves. The next morning, I asked to see the paperwork. She reluctantly handed it over. Property deeds, mortgage documents, ownership papers. My name wasn't anywhere, not on the mortgage, not on the deeds, not on the ownership documents, legally. 6 years of our shared sacrifice had become a property owned by my wife and her brother. I felt physically sick. Last weekend, we visited her parents. Halfway through lunch, my father-in-law smiled and said, "We're proud of what you've done for your brother." I looked around the table. Everyone knew, her parents, her sister, even her aunt congratulated her. I was the only person hearing about it after the deal had already been completed. Once again, I was the last to know. 3 nights ago, I told my wife I wanted to speak to a solicitor. She burst into tears. She said involving lawyers would destroy our marriage. I quietly replied, "I didn't involve lawyers. You involved property lawyers the day you signed those papers. Neither of us spoke for the rest of the evening. Yesterday, she asked if we could just move on. She promised the investment would make us money in the future. Maybe she's right. Maybe one day that house will double in value. But every time I think about it, I don't see bricks. I don't see profit. I see 6 years of shared sacrifice turned into a decision I was never allowed to be part of. The money isn't what keeps me awake at night. It's wondering whether a marriage can survive when one person starts making life-changing decisions alone. I still love my wife. I don't want our children growing up in 2 homes. But I also don't know how to rebuild trust after discovering everyone else celebrated a purchase funded by our dreams, while I was still believing we were saving for them. I still keep the last bank statement we printed together. Across the top, my wife had written 2 words in blue ink: Dream Fund. I can't bring myself to throw it away, because every time I see those words, I'm reminded that somewhere along the way, the dream stopped belonging to both of us. Men of Men Corner. How would you handle this situation?